Friends, welcome to another episode of the Bible Book by Book. Today I've built as a prop to try and just look at something. Now, in Ezekiel 34, there's a whole passage about bad shepherds. And God is talking to the religious leaders and he says, whoa, you're bad shepherds. You know, all you care about is how you look. You want to make sure that your ministry is great. You're wearing the right woolen clothes. You're eating the best food. You're driving the best chariots, essentially. And sheep are wandering away and you're not interested. You're not chasing after them. You're leaving them to their own. But do you know what? Woe to you. I'll do something about it, he says. There's going to be a shepherd that comes and he's going to be a better shepherd than you. So there was these bad shepherds. And then in John chapter 10, we have a whole set of teachings from Jesus where he describes himself as the good shepherd. And an example, very truly I tell you, anybody who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs over another way, is a thief and a robber. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. And he goes on to say in verse 11, I am the good shepherd. The shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. Now, just for a moment, explain how a sheep pen would work. You're out in the wilderness, your sheep are roaming around all the day long. In fact, friends, shepherds in the Middle East didn't just have sheep, they had sheep and goats. Interesting fact, sheep and goats looked almost identical in the Middle East. Now we would say, when Jesus says, I'm the gatekeeper and the sheep and the goats are going to come and I'm going to separate out the sheep and the goats, we'd say, well, Jesus, that's pretty straightforward, surely. It's obvious the difference between sheep. Sheep are fluffy, goats have long, kind of goatee beards. Not in the Middle East. Sheep and goats look identical. They're scraggly, they're worn, they're hungry, they're looking for green pasture, they're dirty. They all look so similar. That's not a problem, because if you were a shepherd, you would have a mixture of the two. And they'd be out wandering, and on a night time, you'd want to bring them into safety so that the wolves wouldn't come and eat them, or people wouldn't destroy them, or people wouldn't steal them. So you'd bring them into your sheep pen where you would count them. You'd know if you had them all, and if you didn't, you might go looking for a sheep that is lost. Nudge, nudge to another story. But what would then happen is the hired hand or the shepherd would essentially sleep in the gateway, in the doorway of the sheep pen, and then if anything untoward came at the night, they were ready to defend the sheep that were inside. Now, if a wolf comes and you're a hired hand, in the passage, Jesus goes on to say, the hired hands, they run away. Well, of course they would. If you were a hired hand and a wolf came, they're not your sheep. So why do you care? You get out of the way and let the wolves kind of eat the sheep because you don't want to lose your life. But Jesus says, no, I'm the good shepherd. I sleep in the gateway and I defend my sheep. But what does he use to defend his sheep? He has one of these bad boys, a shepherd's crook. And if a wolf come, he would defend them and fight them off. Talk about lightsabers. You would do some serious damage with this hockey stick. So the shepherd would defend his sheep by sleeping in the gateway. So Jesus makes that his point. He says, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. So when he sees a wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and lets them run. And he runs away. When the wolf attacks the flock and it scatters, the man runs away because he is a hired hand and does not care for the sheep. John 10:15, Jesus says this, I laid down my life for the sheep. Do you know that there's a shepherd that lays his life down for you, his sheep? The other thing I just want to pull out from the passage is this line, John 10:4. It says, when he was brought out, all of his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. They don't follow the stranger. In fact, they run away. A number of years ago, I was in the Judean desert. I was spending some time just sat watching and listening. And as I was listening, I suddenly heard these little bells ringing over to my right. So I'm watching to work out what these sleigh bells are. And the sheep appeared from underneath this ridge with this young shepherd boy at the front of them. And the shepherd boy was walking them towards green pasture. Green pasture is not big rolling green fields. When you're in the Middle East and you're in a desert, green pasture is just the grass that's growing from underneath rock, the little bits of green grass. The green pasture the Bible talks about is just enough grass to cope for today, and then the shepherd will lead you on to the next green little bit of grass. And what would happen is the shepherd would be walking and the sheep would be following behind. And one of the things I noticed was the shepherd would speak and they would follow, but also the sheep would follow behind, watching the shepherd's feet. As long as the sheep could see the feet of the shepherd, they would never kind of raise their head to look up. So the sheep would follow the shepherd, watching their feet. Just interestingly, in the Exodus story, when we're told God leads his people from Egypt, from slavery to freedom, they're led out through the wilderness, we're told, by this big pillar, the pillar of fire and the pillar of cloud. Actually, the Hebrew word there for pillar is actually where we get the word feet from. So when the shepherd is walking and the sheep are following behind, it's like God's pillar of fire and pillar of smoke leading his people, his feet leading his people through the desert into the promised land. God is the good shepherd. So there you go, just some thoughts on this passage about God's goodness as a shepherd, God's leading and us following him. I suppose our question is, how good are we at trusting the shepherd is going to defend us from the wolves? And how good are we at following the voice of the shepherd and the feet of the shepherd as he leads us from one place to green pastures? Just a thought on the good shepherd. I hope you enjoyed that. Grace and peace.